Hi, Lou here, and I'm going to talk about 4 ways that computer war games and most tabletop war games as well don't reflect war. Now, I've taken these particular 4 from the YouTube channel Military History Visualized, which is one that I watch with some frequency. But you'll see these are pretty obvious, common, the kind of thing that a lot of people would agree on. So, 4 elements. First, games are all or nothing. You have to wipe out enemy units. There are no wounded. Well, that's not entirely true. There are both computer games and even tabletop games where a unit gets hit the first time and it's still there but weakened, and it may get hit several times. And there are computer games certainly where units gain experience and become more powerful and then can be wounded to different levels. But in general, games are all or nothing, and there's a good reason for that. It simplifies things, and you have to simplify when you're going from reality to a game. Number 2 is only warriors allowed. That is to say, you don't ever see the non-combatants, even though in most cases the non-combatants outnumbered the combatants even at a battle. And that's certainly almost always true of any games that I know of. And again, it's a simplification. The non-combatants didn't make much difference, so let's just leave them out. But you can think about a strategic game, say Britannia, where the population is not directly reflected. So in Britannia, I take armies to roughly reflect population, and I just have the armies on the board. I have designed a prototype where I had separate pieces for the population, and the population could gradually change from one nation to another after conquest of the area where they lived, and so forth. But that's more complication again, and it's not usually necessary to represent it, so leave it out. The third one is total information. That is to say, the lack of uncertainty in how things work, in the fog of war, and so forth. You are omnipresent. Precision is available to you. And this is the opposite of warfare. Unfortunately, you're playing a game, and people want to control what happens in the game. They want to feel that they're in control of their own fate. That's kind of the opposite of real warfare, but which are you going to do? Well, if it's a professional war game that the military uses, you might go to the fog of war and so on, and the confusion and uncertainty and chaos. But for an ordinary commercial game, you're rarely going to want to do that. You don't need that additional frustration that the players feel they're not in control of what's happening. And that brings to the fourth, which is total control. If you have total information, you can have total control. There's no delegation in games, generally. Again, there are exceptions. There's a certainty of repair. You know, if you do a certain thing, what's going to happen. Even if there's a combat table or dice involved, you can know what the probabilities are. And that's not true in war, especially early in a war. Later in a war, you've got data to rely on to have some idea what's going to happen. But early in a war, you've got nothing. You're grasping at straws, more or less. Once again, do you want that in a game? I don't think so. So while these 4 are generally true, we can see why in games you don't want to incorporate these into the game in most cases. Thanks for listening.